Hey everybody, welcome to our Facebook Live talk. We're going to be talking about plugins and lots to say. I made a bunch of notes, and we're going to talk about how many plugins is too many plugins. We're going to talk about the plugins that I use the most, what I might recommend for you to check out, how to reduce your use of plugins. I mean, all kinds of questions and answers about plugins. So like last time we did a talk a couple days ago, I told you the story, the crazy, scary story about the conversation that I had with this client that called up, and their whole website just kind of went askew after they'd been working on it for almost 2 months, and a lot of it I think had to do with their use of plugins. And so one of the things that happened was after Wednesday's talk, a bunch of people started messaging me and saying, hey, so what are you saying? Are you saying we should never use plugins? I mean, should we just write the code ourselves? And of course, I did not mean to suggest that all plugins are bad or that tons of plugins are too many plugins, whatever. All I was suggesting was that if you're 100% relying on plugins and page builders and things like that, then you run the risk of having this sort of thing happen to you and not knowing what to do. So today, I'm really looking forward to talking to everybody about, all this plugin stuff. And it's not at all the case that I am against plugins. In fact, I make plugins, right? I'm the founder of Cart66, the WordPress e-commerce platform. Been doing it since like 2008. So for a long time, I've been making plugins. And I've got other plugins too. I've developed this plugin called Core WP. It's like helps you put sheet music on your WordPress site. So like if you are a songwriter or a musician or something, you want to share music or whatever, you can get your chords and your lyrics on your WordPress site with a plugin. So I'm not at all against plugins. So before we dive totally into all of this, let's talk about a couple things real quick. First, this is the Double Stack group, and I'm so happy that you're here. It's growing really quickly. As of right now, we're at like 88 subscribers, and we started the group Tuesday. So, that's really cool. 88 is one of my favorite numbers because of Back to the Future, 88 miles per hour. So excited to see all of that happening. If you're part of the group and you want to get notifications and you want to see when we're doing all this stuff, click on the notifications button, turn on notifications for you, and you will see all of our posts and videos and things like this. If you want to stay abreast of all the stuff that we're doing, in addition to the Facebook group, you've got an email list that you can subscribe to where we'll be sending out emails about all the stuff we talk about here and links to watch these video replays and stuff like that. And you can find that on the Double Stack website. So head over to doublestack.net, and down in the footer, you'll see a link to join the email list. So that's another way to stay connected. And also, I've got my WordCamp Raleigh shirt on. WordCamp Raleigh is happening this weekend. I think it's tomorrow, and that's going to be fun. So if you're anywhere in the North Carolina region, I'm in Virginia. North Carolina is just one state down. If you're anywhere in that area, head over there. And Ray Mitchell is in this group, so check out Ray. He's going to be giving a presentation on at WordCamp tomorrow. So check him out. He's got a WordPress agency in North Carolina. Super smart, super nice guy, and I'm sure he would love it if you walked up and said hello after his talk. So okay, the plugins. Let's talk about the plugins. So the first thing that I want to say about these plugins is it's not so much about the quantity of the plugins as it is about the quality of the plugins. And really to kind of underscore that point, I think it was like back in 2013. I remember, like, it's been a long time now, but I remember watching this YouTube video of Pippin. And in fact, I was reading, Pippin Williamson, he develops like Easy Digital Downloads. That plugin makes a bunch of plugins. Awesome WordPress developer, plugin developer. And I remember when I first saw that video, and I actually saw the video again just like a couple days ago. I got an email from Codable, I think, wrote a post about the actual question that we're talking about today. And when I got the email, I was like, "Whoa, we're going to talk about that, in just a couple of days." So I read the thing, and Codable had this whole thing about how many plugins is too many plugins, and they actually referenced Pippin's video, and he runs like 80 or 90 plugins on his site at least at that time. I'm not sure what he's doing anymore, but I mean that's a lot of plugins. I mean that's an awful lot of plugins. but it's but like he knows what he's doing, and he knows how to pick good plugins, and he's not wrecking his site. And the deal behind the plugins is if it's doing something for you, and it's like a particular need that you want to have, you know, fulfilled on your site, then install the plugin and use it. Especially if it's got good reviews, if it's been around for a while. And I think one of the best ways to find good plugins is to find people that take the time to write documentation and that have you know, folks that are interested in support. You know, like if you can get support or whatever for your plugins, you know, it's hard to write a plugin. I mean, it's really hard to keep a good plugin going. You know, so many things change all the time. You're constantly adding new features. You're constantly having to keep up with your own documentation and stuff. And so if you can find developers doing those things, then the chances are you're finding a pretty good plugin. So even if there's like, you know, not too many reviews, or even if there's some bad reviews, if there's also lots of good reviews, then the plugin's probably pretty good. So so there's that. And let me see, I've got some notes up here. Okay, so what plugins do I use? So like after the conversation on Wednesday, some people thought that, you know, I didn't use any plugins. I was totally against plugins. And that's not true. So most of my sites don't have very many plugins, but there are some that I like. And I would say most of the sites I build have maybe like 10 plugins in them. And here's some of the ones that I really like using, and I'll tell you why. So the first one on the list is All-in-One SEO. That's my search engine optimization plugin of choice. And in fact, those are the guys that actually sponsor and do the WordCamp Raleigh stuff. So those are some great guys. I know them. They know me. We've worked together for years on various things. They use Cart66 for stuff. And it's a really cool plugin. And I like it more than the Yoast plugin, although the Yoast plugin is awesome too. But I find the All-in-One SEO plugin's a little bit lighter weight. You know, it's not telling me how to write stuff and, you know, not giving me stoplight signs as to how many words to use and whether or not I've got all the keyword stuff. I don't really want all that in my plugin. What I want to do is I want to be able to control like the page titles, and like when you share a link on social media or whatever, I want to be able to control, you know, how's that going to expand? Like if you tweet out a link or if you share a link on Facebook Messenger or whatever. And I find all that really helpful. Like the social meta is what it's called in the plugin, and that's pretty cool. And I use that plugin because it brings features that are not currently available in WordPress and that I really think are important for search engine optimization. Another plugin that I really like a lot is the Genesis eNews Extended plugin. And it's not really much of a plugin at all. I mean, it doesn't do a whole lot, but what it does really well. And that is it enables you to put a form on your website to enable people to sign up for your email lists. And that's really cool and helpful for you know, growing your list and doing all kinds of really cool email automation stuff. And I actually use Mad Mimi a lot for email marketing and so forth. And it integrates in really well with Cart66. And you can do all kinds of really, really cool stuff. I'm not going to go into all the details right now, but the cool thing about the way that the Genesis eNews Extended plugin works is it lets you build this form that just does like this direct post. So it just sends the email address basically into the system, and enables you to have a really clean interface, very simple, really nice to use. Anybody can do it, and it's really lightweight and doesn't bog down your site at all. Another one, you know, I tend to use some kind of a plugin to do a form, like on a contact page. It's really nice to have a form there. So Gravity Forms is really awesome. I've been using that for years and use that a lot. Ninja Forms, really good too. And the guys over at the Theme Foundry that create the Make theme, they have a new plugin out called Happy Forms. It's only been around for, I don't know, maybe a couple months now. It's new, but it's really slick and integrates in really well with their theme. And on top of all of that, it's you know, constantly getting new features. Like they just released an update, I think maybe like last night, to version 1.3 as of right now. So that's a cool one. So, but the point is, you know, it's really nice to have a form, and it's really nice not to have to like hand code it. And you know, having a plugin for that is great. Another one that I use sometimes is header and footer scripts, and this is kind of an iffy plugin. But if you want to include any particular scripts in the header or the footer of your site, you know, like Google Analytics stuff or something like that, then it's nice to put a little link right there in the plugin like that. Now, of course, you can also do that right there in your functions.php page or something to include it through like a child theme or something like that. which is probably the preferable way. But if you're in development and you just want to quickly snatch a script of some sort, like include like a style sheet or a JavaScript or whatever, that's a really cool plugin. Another one that I use is called redirection. So if you're renaming any of your pages, or you're migrating a site from one place to another, and you're gonna kind of be shifting around what pages you have, or maybe maybe you delete a page or something, but you don't want to delete the traffic from that page, and you can redirect it over to the new page. So redirection is really cool. So it basically lets you control the like the 301 or 307 or whatever redirects. So if somebody's going to one page and you want to delete that page and send them over to a different page that's more appropriate now, you can do that with that plugin, and it's really cool. Another one is SSL Secure Content Fixer. And so if you have a site that has never been behind a SSL certificate before, and you start using one, then a lot of times you'll find that there's links and images and things like that that get included that are not behind an SSL in terms of the code, that you have these absolute URLs that start with HTTP rather than HTTPS, and that's going to give you that crazy, frustrating, non-locked browser symbol. So you're going to have little insecure content warnings. So to fix that, you go ahead and install this SSL Secure Content Fixer, and that can help you really quickly solve a lot of those problems. I sometimes use Crayon Syntax Highlighter. Like if I'm going to be putting together a site where there's source code, I will do that with that plugin. And another one that I also like is Better Click to Tweet. Ben Meredith, who's also in Raleigh, and I know from the WordCamp Raleigh, from the WordCamps there. He's got this plugin that he's been building and supporting for years now. He's also a super dude, and you should check him out. And he's got this plugin called Better Click to Tweet. And that's really cool because you can be like writing a blog post, and then you can like take these sections of what you're writing and kind of highlight it in this box. And if somebody clicks that box, it launches this little window where they can tweet out that quote with a link back to your site and stuff like that. So that's a really cool way to increase engagement with your blog posts. And I already mentioned that I wrote some of my own plugins, so obviously I'm not averse to plugins. I'm kind of going through my notes here. And so when should you use plugins and when should you not use plugins, and why was I talking about my frustration with all the plugins? And here's the main thing that I really want to underscore in this particular talk with you guys, and that is I have found that so many times people will install plugins to do things that already happen inside of WordPress, or that override like functionality that's already there in WordPress, and they don't even know about it or something. And so like the number of plugins that you install isn't really the issue. The issue is which plugins you install and why. And I have two things that I really want to express about this. One of them is learn some stuff about what WordPress can do. So for example, I was actually on Reddit not too long ago, and I noticed this guy commenting about, he just wanted to be able to put his audio files on his WordPress site, and he couldn't find a plugin for that. And he's like, there's all these different plugins, but they do so many other things. I just want to be able to play, these little audio samples from the music. He was like a musician, and so I actually went on and said, hey, did you know that if you go into the media library, you can create audio playlists right in WordPress, no plugins needed at all? And he was so happy about that. I mean, he didn't know that, and so I gave him like this little brief, very brief instructions in my little response on Reddit. He went in and checked all that stuff out, and was so happy that he got back on, and he was like thanking me with all of these exclamation points. Like it was like he was on a roller coaster on his birthday, sitting next to Santa Claus. I mean, he was so happy about all of that, and it was all stuff that's native in WordPress, and so that's the thing. Don't install plugins unless you actually need functionality that's not already in WordPress. So and the audio thing is a huge one that it seems like not too many people know about. You can do photo galleries in WordPress too. There's a whole gallery thing in there, and if you learn, and here's the second thing, if you learn a little bit of code, and I'm not talking about like writing your own plugins or like building themes from scratch. All I'm talking about is like learn a little bit of HTML so that you can like recognize the tags and the syntax there. Learn a little bit of CSS so that you can, you know, change the colors of things, put little borders around things, change squares to circles and things like that. Add spacing, alignment issues. You know, you can do all of that stuff with CSS. It doesn't take much code, doesn't take very long to learn, and you can do so much really cool stuff without the need for any plugins. And then if you want to take it even one step further than that, you can actually learn like a little bit of PHP. I mean, I'm not talking about, you don't have to like do database connections and object-oriented programming or any of that, but if you learn a little bit of PHP, that goes a really long way in terms of avoiding the need for plugins. Like, for example, I talked to you about the header and footer scripts thing. You don't have to have a plugin for that. In fact, you can just write a little bit of PHP and put it in like a child theme in like your functions.php file, and you can enqueue scripts and stuff so that you don't have to have a plugin for that. And you can filter out certain categories of blog posts that you don't want to have, you know, show up and things like that without a plugin. And it's really, and you're not even writing much code. I'm talking like 2 or 3 lines of PHP, and you can do some really slick stuff. So, the kind of like the last thing that I wanted to talk about was how do you reduce your need for plugins? And of course, what I just said is one of them. You know, learn a little bit about code, learn a little bit about WordPress itself and what's natively available, and you can pretty seriously reduce your need for plugins, because there's a ton of stuff that WordPress can do on its own, and there's some really slick stuff that you can do with the stuff that's already there, like with your theme that you already have or whatever, by adding a little bit of CSS. But another thing that you can do, and that you can kind of take away your need for like a whole section of a whole set of categories of plugins, is you can host your website at Flywheel. And that's where I host all of my websites. I've been working with them for maybe over a year now. And that's where we host our clients' websites. So, and the cool thing about hosting with them is it takes care of all of your backup plugins. So like you don't have to install backup plugins anymore, because they do nightly backups, and you can do on-demand backups. And anytime you want to do anything, you can you just stick you can like do an on-demand backup. So like if you were going to be, you know, wanting to work with you know, maybe you're going to upgrade WordPress core or something like that, which actually they will do for you, which is another thing I was going to point out. Or maybe you want to like make a really big change to your website, and before you do that, you just make a backup, and that's in addition to the nightly backups they do for you. So they do a really good job, and you can restore it with like one click, and it's very, very nice and easy. You don't have to worry about paying for extra space for the backup. It's all just included in the package. And security plugins is another thing you don't have to worry about when you're hosting there, because they take care of all the security for you. So like if you're using like iTheme security, or you know something to prevent brute force login attempts or whatever, well, they take care of all that for you, and you don't have to worry about that genre of plugins. And another one too. This is kind of a tricky one too. Email plugins. Like a lot of people don't know this, but if you really want your emails to get delivered, then it's very important to not have the emails be sent through the WordPress server. You want to have a real SMTP server involved. Otherwise, your emails are just going to get flagged by spam, and nobody's going to actually get your emails. So like if you're sending like email receipts for e-commerce transactions, or emails for confirmation notices for when forms get submitted online and things like that, if you're using the web server as your email server, just like by default how WordPress works, then that's not gonna be too reliable. So what you want to do is install some kind of a plugin that enables you to send email through a legitimate SMTP server like SendGrid or something like that. But if you're hosting at Flywheel, all of your emails automatically get sent through SendGrid, and you don't need to have a plugin for that. And another one is caching plugins. The folks over at Flywheel, their hosting package deals with caching for you already, and they've got a CDN that's available to you if you want to use that. But even if you don't, they still do some pretty nice caching for you just by default in all of the accounts. And so you don't have to have things like W3 Total Cache or WP Super Cache or whatever. All of the caching is actually handled by them, so you don't have to worry about those kind of plugins, which is really nice. And so some of the problems with plugins, you know, we talked about duplicating functionality, but there's another kind of irksome issue with too many plugins that I find really annoying. So so I work with tons and tons of support tickets and people, people's WordPress sites, and they, I'm logging in and helping them with all kinds of stuff all the time, every day, and almost all the time, very, very frequently, I'll log in and there's like tons of these like alerts and notices and just advertisements and of stuff from all of these free plugins that are installed but maybe not even used. And so lots of plugins just make this really messy environment oftentimes inside of the WordPress admin dashboard. And so like if you're putting together like a professional website and you're going to be handing it off to your client, and then your client logs in and sees like gobs of ads for free plugins that are in use, and it just bothers me. That's all I'm saying. It's not wrong per se. It's just, come on. That's a lot of issues. And if you can not install that many plugins, or actually buy the premium version of plugins, which would be really helpful, I'm sure, for the guys that develop those plugins, that might be cool. But one of the downsides of having lots of plugins is all those alerts and notices and ads and stuff. So and so another thing about plugins is that there's so many like larger platforms, like the general pattern that seems to be going on with a lot of premium plugins is you get like the core aspect of the plugin kind of for free, and then you buy add-ons for all the features that you need. That's kind of like how WooCommerce works, where you get like WooCommerce itself is free, but then like if you want to do like coupons, there's a plugin for that, and if you want to have gateways or whatever, there's plugins for that, and if you want to have whatever it is that you want to do, there's plugins for that. And the cool thing about that is you can just buy the things that you need, and if you want to do subscriptions, there's a plugin for that. Membership content, there's a plugin for that. Whatever it is that you want, you can pretty much do anything that you want with buying these plugins. But then, of course, the downside is now you've got all these plugins you got to deal with and updates from all the plugins, and it's kind of that's not how I really would prefer to work. I'd rather have like our all-in-one system. So like the Card66 platform, for example, is like the opposite of that, where we have two plugins. We have the Card66 plugin, which does like pretty much everything that you might want to do with regard to e-commerce, and then we've got one other plugin that's also free. So if you want to start doing membership content, like selling subscriptions or membership access to content and things like that, you activate that plugin too, and then you have access to like content restriction features and recurring billing and all that stuff. So actually, the recurring billing is available in the core stuff, but the content restriction, like if you wanted to like sell premium content like videos or online magazines and stuff like that, then that is handled with that. So there's two plugins, our whole system. You get everything basically all at once, and that just feels better to me. I mean, I like to have everything integrated. I like all the developers being the same, like on the same team. And it's just a really nice, solid feeling to know that all the pieces are built to work together. All of the pieces are tested together. It's just a nice thing. And a lot of other platforms that have, especially lots of third-party developers, what if they stop wanting to support their plugin and you're relying on it or whatever? It's like you have all of these different developers, all these different companies, all these different support plans, all these different renewal periods, and it's kind of seems hard to manage. So that's one thing to consider when you're trying to figure out what kind of plugins to use. So so there's that, and then there's also so basically the overall point that I jotted down in my notes is integrating plugins can be kind of painful sometimes. Depending on how closely they were developed together, whatever. The integration of lots and lots of plugins can often be a bit of a pain. So and then the last category of plugins that I wanted to talk about in this gigantic download of my thoughts on plugins is some of the plugins are super duper heavy on your system, and those plugins include pretty much anything that like scans through all the pages and posts on your WordPress site. And so hey Steve, it's good to see you. Thanks for joining in. Canvas. So so what I mean is like related post plugins, for example, like Yet another related post plugin is one of them. And I'm not saying anything bad about the plugin. The plugin serves a point. What I am saying is it's heavy duty on your server. It's really resource intensive because it's scanning through all your pages to try to figure out, you know, what are the related plugins and try to like, related posts and try to, you know, auto link those things for you. Or like auto linking plugins, like if there's certain words in your posts that if it matches the title of another post, then it makes a link and things like that. Or broken link checkers is another one that is something that scans through all the links in your site and all the pages in your site to try to see if the links are good. Those are really, really heavy on your server and can really bog things down and slow things up. So there's actually there's free, like the link checker thing is really a nice feature. You don't want to have broken links in your site, but there's actually like a free broken link checker. Hey, and you know what I'll do? I'll put a link to it. It's free, and I'll put a link to it in the comments below. And it'll help you find dead links, and you just basically put your web address in it, and then this external service will scan through your site and try to locate the broken links for you, and that offloads the processing of all that to, you know, this third-party site rather than bogging down your website. So that's pretty nice. So that's one of the things. In fact, if you host over at Flywheel, they actually have some like prohibited plugins for this very reason, because it's just too hard on the servers, and they don't want to be, you know, have your site be bogged down by all of that. So so there you go. So those are all of the things that I wanted to say about plugins. If you have any questions about the plugins or what plugins to use or whatever, let me know about that. And if you're interested in learning how to build better websites for yourself or your clients, and you want to be able to break free from this 100% reliance on plugins, yeah, let's talk about that. Let me know. I can absolutely help you with that sort of a thing. And the scary part about the plugins is if all you know is there's a plugin for that kind of solution for things, then if something goes wrong, it's really hard to know what to do about it, and you oftentimes end up having to like find other consultants to help you out if something goes wrong. And that is not the recipe for being a high-value WordPress developer. You should be the guy that they call when the plugins go awry. You're the guy that that can fix it. And so if that's something that you want to learn how to do, let me know. Let's talk about it. I can help you figure out how to maybe avoid the use of some plugins, how to find the right plugins you want, you know, develop really clean sites that you can hand off to your clients that are actually going to grow their business, grow your business, and everything will be really cool with your relationships, because you're not going to have the problem that I was talking about a couple days ago where you're doing something and the whole site goes askew and you don't know what to do. So thanks for checking this video out. Thanks for joining the group. If you want to follow us by way of email, go to doublestack.net, and you'll see a way to subscribe to our email list. And we'll be back again next week with some more tips on how to build high-value WordPress sites. So thanks so much for joining us today, and I'll talk to you again soon.